The wedding that felt like a dream. I had always believed that love didn't have to be loud to be real. Sometimes love was quiet, like making coffee before the other person woke up, or remembering how they liked their toast. And no one embodied that quiet love more than Noah. Noah Jameson, my best friend since high school, my rock through my mother's death, the one who sat with me on the bathroom floor when I thought I couldn't breathe, the one who whispered, "You'll be okay," even when I didn't believe it myself. So when he asked me to marry him on a rainy Tuesday in our kitchen, with a simple ring and even simpler words, "Why not us?" I said yes. Not because it was sudden, but because it made sense. Because who better to marry than the one who had loved you the longest? Our wedding was small. Just 32 guests, a backyard filled with fairy lights, and soft music playing from a Bluetooth speaker that kept glitching during the vows. But it was perfect. He looked at me like I was a promise he was keeping. And I looked at him like he was a future I never had to second guess. We danced barefoot on wet grass, and he twirled me like we were 17 again. I remember leaning my head on his chest that night and whispering, "I'm so lucky." And he had replied, after a pause just slightly too long, "Yeah, me too." That pause should have meant something, but I was too in love to hear it. The first few weeks of marriage felt like floating. Noah made breakfast. I brought him coffee at work. We stayed up late watching our favorite childhood cartoons. We fought over dumb things like laundry and toothpaste cussy. But even the arguments felt safe. He was calm, present, gentle. But now that I look back, he was also careful. Too careful. Like someone walking through a house made of glass, afraid of breaking something. Then came the whispers. From my cousin. From an old friend. From someone who used to know someone who worked with Noah. He's too perfect, you know? He changed jobs right before the wedding. Doesn't it feel fast? I brushed it off, because when you're in love, questions feel like betrayal. And I had already built my life around this man, this best friend, this husband. Then, on a Sunday afternoon, I found the envelope. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for a charger in the nightstand drawer on his side, but instead I found an envelope, unsealed, labeled only with a name I didn't recognize. E. Maddox. Inside, a check, a $10,000 check, dated a month before the wedding. With the memo line, "Namin man installment." My hands trembled. I looked up at our wedding photo on the wall, us laughing. His arms around me, the same arms that held secrets. When Noah came home that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table, the envelope in front of me. He froze, and I knew everything was about to fall apart. "Who paid you to love me?" He stood frozen in the doorway, keys still in hand, his eyes locked on the envelope on the table. For a moment, it was as if the entire world had stopped breathing. I didn't say anything. Neither did he. But the silence between us? It screamed louder than anything I could have shouted. Noah closed the door gently behind him, his movements slow, controlled. He walked toward the table, each step measured, like he was walking toward a bomb he had built himself. He glanced at the envelope, then at me. "Where did you find it?" he asked softly. The question sliced through me. Not "what is that?" Not "let me explain." Just "where?" My voice came out hoarse. "Your drawer. The one next to our bed. You know, the one next to where we sleep together, dream together, build a future together." He looked down. I pushed the envelope toward him. "You going to tell me what this is, or should I ask the bank myself?" His jaw clenched. Then, finally, he sat down. "Noah," I said, my voice cracking, "I'm going to ask you once, and I need you to answer me like I'm not your wife. Not your friend. Just someone who deserves the truth." He nodded. I stared straight into his eyes. "Who paid you to love me?" He flinched. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough for me to know this wasn't some misunderstanding. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the check. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he whispered. My heart slammed against my chest. "So you admit it?" He nodded once. Tight, regretful, but it's not what you think. I laughed. I actually laughed. Because how many times had I read those words in novels? Seen them in films? It's not what you think. It's always what we think. He continued. "Ethan Maddox, he's your father's former business partner. I blinked. My dad's been dead for 5 years. I know, Noah said. But before he passed, he left something behind. Something Ethan was supposed to handle. I stared at him, cold. And what was that? A contract? A clause that says, if she's broken and lonely by 28, make sure someone fake marries her? He closed his eyes for a second. I didn't marry you for money, Clara. Then what the hell was the 10,000 for? His voice dropped. For the beginning, I couldn't speak. Because deep down, I already knew. He had always shown up too perfectly. Said the right things at the right moments. Held me when I didn't know I needed to be held. It had felt magical. But now, it felt scripted. He leaned forward. It started as a favor. A deal. Your father asked Ethan to make sure you weren't alone. He was worried. He knew how much losing him broke you. He left a fund behind for someone to be there to protect you. And Ethan picked you, I said, voice numb. I was just supposed to check in. He whispered. Be your friend. Make sure you weren't falling apart. I felt dizzy. But we were already friends since high school. He nodded. That's why he chose me. Because you already trusted me and I... He stopped himself. I stood up, pushed my chair back hard. You took money to play hero, Noah. No, he said quickly. I took money before I knew what it would become. I didn't know I'd fall in love with you. I didn't know I'd actually... You did fall in love with me? His silence said everything. I shook my head. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't let them fall. Every kiss, every vow, every time you held my hand, was it part of the payment plan? No, he said firmly. Not after. Not the wedding. I gave the money back after I proposed. Every cent I can show you. I stared at him. Noah, I would have believed you. I would have believed all of it. If you had told me the truth before I gave you my whole life. I walked past him. Tears now falling freely, hot and sharp. As I reached the stairs, he called after me. Clara, please, I didn't come into your life to break you. I stopped. Turned my head just slightly. No, I said. But you stayed just long enough to make me believe I was finally whole. And then I walked away. From the man who had known my weakest moments. From the love that had felt safe. And now felt like a lie wrapped in warmth. Love bought with a price. The house was too quiet now. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. But the kind that creeps into your bones. The kind that turns every memory into a question mark. I sat on the edge of the bed we once shared. My wedding ring still on my finger. Like a joke I hadn't realized was being told. I tried to trace it all back. The late night calls, the surprise flowers, the way Noah always seemed to know exactly what I needed before I even said it. I used to think that was love. Now I wasn't sure. Was it intuition or just excellent preparation? Did he hold my hand because he loved the way it fit in his? Or because someone was paying him to? I looked at the pictures on our wall. Smiling, dancing, laughing, so many smiles. So many lies. My phone buzzed. A message from Noah. I left the receipts in the folder on the kitchen table. Proof I returned the money. Proof I chose you. I didn't answer. Because right now I didn't know what that choice meant anymore. Later that night, I opened the folder. Neatly stacked papers, bank statements, a return transfer. $10,000 wired back to E. Maddox 2 days after our engagement. My hands trembled. He had told the truth. At least part of it. But truth is strange. It doesn't always erase the betrayal that came before it. I stared at one piece of paper in particular. A note, scribbled in Noah's messy handwriting. I don't want to be paid to love her. I already do. Please end this arrangement. Dated a month before our wedding. The ink was smudged. Maybe from tears, but whose? The next morning, I went to Ethan Maddox's office. I didn't call ahead. Didn't ask permission. I needed answers. Real ones. From the man who started all of this. He looked surprised to see me. Older now. A bit slower. But his eyes were sharp. Clara, he said. I was wondering when you'd come. I sat down. Don't act like this was inevitable. You made it happen. He nodded, not defensive. I did. I blinked. Why? He folded his hands. Because your father asked me to. I exhaled. Everyone keeps saying that. But why? Why would my dad ask you to hire someone to love me? Ethan sighed. For a moment, his gaze softened. Because he saw what you were becoming after he got sick. After your mother passed, he worried you were closing off, losing yourself. He didn't want to control your life, Clara. He just didn't want you to be alone. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I was grieving. I didn't need a paid protector. I needed time. I know, he said quietly. But parents don't always get it right, even when they mean well. I stood to leave, but paused. One more thing, I said. Why Noah? Ethan smiled faintly. Because he already loved you. He just didn't know it yet. Those words haunted me the entire walk home. Because if Noah loved me before the money, why didn't he tell me? Why let the truth rot quietly beneath our vows? That night, I stared at the ceiling, wondering what was worse, that Noah lied, or that I might still love him anyway. Love, I realized, wasn't just about feelings. It was about trust. And once it was broken, even love bought with a price might be too expensive to keep. You loved me, or you needed me? I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was crying. I didn't cry. I couldn't. My body felt numb, my brain a spinning carousel of questions, and my heart, it was silent, which scared me the most. Because I used to feel everything. Now, I wasn't sure if I felt anything at all. When I finally sat up, the sun had already risen. Light poured in through the window like a spotlight on the ruins of my life. The wedding photos on the wall. His slippers still by the bed. The cup of coffee he made me yesterday morning, still sitting half full on the kitchen counter. How can love vanish so fast? Or maybe it didn't vanish. Maybe it was never real. My phone buzzed again. Noah. Can we talk? I stared at the message. Typed, deleted, typed again. Then finally responded, only if you're ready to tell me the things you never dared to. He came that evening. Didn't bring flowers, didn't bring excuses. Just stood in the doorway like a man begging to enter his own memory. I let him in. Barely. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, like strangers who shared a secret. I looked at him, really looked at him. He was thinner, eyes red-rimmed, fingers trembling, but he still looked like Noah, my Noah. Or maybe the version of him I created in my head. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. He exhaled slowly, because I didn't want to lose you. But keeping the secret was what lost me. I know, he whispered. I kept telling myself I'd tell you, that the right moment would come, but it never did. And the longer I waited, the more terrified I became that you'd see everything as a lie. And wasn't it? I said, voice tight. He shook his head. No, not everything. Not the way I watched you dance barefoot in the kitchen. Not the way I memorized your laugh. Not the way I chose to love you even after the money was gone. That word again. Chose. I don't know if that's better, I said quietly. That you chose me after being paid to. He flinched. I know how it sounds. No, I snapped. You know how it feels, because you made me feel like I was safe. Like I was finally something someone loved without a reason. My voice cracked. And now I don't know if you loved me, or if I was just the most convenient place to put your need to feel like a good person. He looked shattered. I didn't come into your life to manipulate you. I laughed bitterly. You didn't have to. You just let me believe a lie you were too cowardly to correct. Silence fell between us. And then he said the one thing I wasn't prepared for. I needed you, Clara. Before I ever realized I loved you, I needed you. Those words hit me in the chest like a weight I wasn't ready for. Because deep down, I understood. I had needed him too. After my mother died. After my father faded into cancer and silence. After the loneliness wrapped around me like a second skin. Noah had been my escape. My comfort, my oxygen. And now I was suffocating in the very air I once thought saved me. I don't know what's real anymore, I whispered. He reached for my hand. I didn't stop him, but I didn't hold him back either. I don't want to lose you, he said. I looked at him, and I asked the most honest question I've ever spoken. Do you love me, Noah? Or do you just hate the idea of being the man who broke me? He didn't answer. Not with words. Just silence. And that silence told me more than anything he could have said. The space where love used to be. I moved out 2 days later. Not because he asked me to, not because we fought, not even because I hated him. I moved out because I needed to remember who I was before I was his wife. Before I was the woman someone else paid him to love. before I became a character in a story someone else wrote. The new place was quiet. Too quiet. No shared toothbrush, no coffee cups side by side, no good morning love notes on the fridge. Just me, and the echo of what used to be us. I left behind the wedding photo, the handwritten vows, even the playlist he made for our first dance. I didn't take those things because I didn't want souvenirs of a half-truth. But grief is funny. You expect it to hit all at once. But it comes in waves. It comes when you're brushing your teeth and realize there's no one behind you humming. It comes when you're watching your favorite show and look beside you out of habit, and he's not there. It comes when your hand still reaches for 2 mugs in the morning. It comes when love is gone, but your body hasn't gotten the memo yet. Noah texted me every day. How are you sleeping? I made lasagna, your favorite. The apartment feels too big. I miss you. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't miss him, but because I was afraid that missing him would turn into forgiving him before I was ready. I started therapy. First session, I cried the entire time. Second session, I just stared at the wall. Third session, I said 4 words. I don't trust love. My therapist nodded. She didn't try to fix it. She just let the sentence sit there between us, the way pain sometimes needs to. I went back to work. Tried to focus, tried to smile when people asked about married life. I told them it's complicated. They nodded like they understood. But they didn't. How could they? They didn't marry their best friend only to find out he was once assigned to protect them like a project. One night I found myself walking past our old apartment. The lights were on. His shadow moved across the window, the same way it used to when I'd come home late. I stood there on the other side of the glass and realized this isn't home anymore. Not because he changed, not because I stopped loving him, but because somewhere along the way I stopped belonging to a version of love that was built on a lie. The next morning, a letter arrived. From him. Again. Inside, a photo. Us. Laughing, faces smeared with cake on our wedding day, and on the back, a single sentence. I never knew how to deserve you, but I never stopped trying to. I stared at it for a long time, because it wasn't the worst thing he'd done. It was, in some twisted way, the most honest. I placed the photo in a drawer, not to keep it close, but to acknowledge it happened. Because healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning how to carry the weight without letting it crush you. Letters I never sent, it started with a blank page. I didn't mean to write anything profound. I didn't sit down thinking, this will be healing. I just couldn't sleep, and the silence of the apartment was starting to feel louder than any lie Noah ever told me. So I grabbed a pen and wrote 2 words at the top of the page. Dear Noah. I didn't think, I just wrote. I don't hate you. I wish I did. Because hating you would be easier than wondering what was ever real between us. You used to hold me like I was the most fragile thing in your world. But maybe I was just the most expensive. I wanted to believe you chose me, but now I can't stop asking myself, did you ever have to? Or were you just fulfilling a debt someone else handed you? I put the pen down, stared at the page, then tore it out. Not to throw it away, but to keep it somewhere I could return to, if I ever forgot what I survived. The next night, I wrote again. This time, not to Noah, but to my father. Dear Dad, I know you meant well. I know you were trying to protect me. But love isn't something you can hire someone to hand to your daughter like a birthday gift. You wanted to keep me from falling apart, but in doing so, you made sure I never got the chance to stand on my own first. I miss you, but I'm learning now. Sometimes love hurts because it's real. And sometimes protection hurts because it's fear disguised as care. Next time, let me fall. I promise I'll rise. That letter? I cried through every word, but when I finished, I felt lighter. Like grief had stepped back just enough to let breath in. Every night for the next week, I wrote. Not to send, just to say what my voice was too tired to speak. I wrote to myself. You are not broken. You were misled, not unloved. You are allowed to still feel. You are not naive. You are brave for believing in love, even if it lied. You do not have to erase the past to build the future. And then, I wrote a letter I never expected to write. One I wasn't ready for, one that scared me. Dear Clara, I forgive you. For not seeing the red flags, for trusting too easily, for needing someone so badly that you didn't question the too perfect timing. for loving him with your whole heart, even when he only offered pieces. You were doing your best, you still are, and you are still worthy of the love you dreamed of. Even if this time it came in disguise. That night I folded all the letters, tied them with a ribbon, and placed them in a shoebox labeled, "For when I forget." Because healing isn't linear. Some days I still woke up missing the sound of his laugh. Some nights I still felt the phantom warmth of his arms around me. But now, I had my own voice to hold on to. Love didn't die with our marriage. It just returned home. To me, when he knocked again. It was a rainy Thursday when he showed up again. Like the first day he ever confessed his love. Like the night we kissed under a leaky umbrella. Like fate had a sense of irony. I didn't open the door immediately. I stood behind it, listening. 3 knocks. A long pause. Then just one word, soft as breath. "Clara." I opened it. Not wide. Just enough to see him. Hood wet, hands clenched, eyes carrying the kind of weight only time gives. We stood there for a beat. He didn't speak first this time. I did. "Why are you here?" He looked down. Took a breath. "I read your letter." I blinked. "What letter?" "The one you never sent." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a copy. My letter to myself. The one I wrote starting with, "Dear Clara, I forgive you." I felt my knees go weak. "How did you—" "You left it behind," he said. It was tucked inside the drawer of the nightstand. I wasn't looking for anything, I promise. But I opened it one night when I couldn't sleep, and it fell into my lap. Silence. Then slowly, carefully, he stepped closer. "I didn't come to ask for anything," he said. "Not your forgiveness, not your love, not even your time." I stayed still, watching, waiting. "I just needed to say it to your face this time." He took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry people say to move on, but the kind that holds every unsaid word. The kind that takes years to form and seconds to fall apart in your hands." "I was a coward," he continued. "I thought I was protecting you, but I was just protecting myself. From being hated, from being left, from losing the only good thing I ever knew." My throat tightened. He looked at me then. Eyes glassy, voice cracking. "I didn't know how to love you right, Clara. But I never stopped trying." For a second, the room spun. Because I remembered. I remembered the warmth, the shared laughter, the way he held my trembling hands at my father's funeral, the way I had once believed his arms were home. But now home was me, and I wasn't sure if there was room anymore for what used to be. Still, I asked, "So what now, Noah?" He didn't answer right away. Then quietly he said, "Now, I rebuild. Not for you, not to win you back, but because loving you showed me what kind of man I should have been all along." He smiled, small and sad. "And maybe one day, if you ever feel like it, we can share coffee. No expectations, just 2 people who once loved deeply and still care enough to see each other healed." I opened the door wider, let the light spill across both of us, then softly replied, "I think I'd like that. No promises, no fairy tale endings, just an honest beginning. Maybe not for us, but for me. Because love, real love, isn't about ownership. It's about presence." And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was no longer haunted by his absence. I was ready to forgive, to grow, to breathe again. The day I fell in love with myself again. It didn't happen in one grand moment. There was no cinematic music, no golden hour lighting, no audience to applaud. Just a mirror. And me. Hair still damp from a shower, t-shirt too loose, eyes swollen from crying, but softer now. I looked at myself and didn't flinch. That was new. For weeks I had been holding my breath, waiting for the pain to disappear, waiting to stop missing him, waiting to feel whole again. But healing doesn't come like a flood, it comes like a drip. Quiet, steady, sometimes unnoticed. Until one day, you wake up and don't feel the urge to check your phone for his name. You sip your coffee and actually taste it. You pass the old apartment and don't ache. You look in the mirror and see someone worth staying for. That day, I bought myself flowers. Not because I was sad, but because I wanted to celebrate. Celebrate surviving. Noah had taught me many things. About love, about loss, about the gray lines between good intentions and hidden truths. But the greatest lesson came after him. I don't need someone to complete me. I am not missing pieces. I am the whole damn puzzle. I walked to my favorite cafe alone. Ordered the pastry I used to split with him. This time I didn't share. I brought my journal. And on the first page I wrote, "This chapter belongs to me." People always talk about heartbreak like it's an end, but they forget. When a heart breaks, it opens. And through the cracks, light gets in. That night, I received a message from Noah. I started volunteering. Thought of you when the kids laughed so loud I forgot everything else. I hope you're smiling somewhere tonight. I didn't reply, but I smiled. Because I was. I lit a candle in my tiny new apartment, put on music I loved, sang aloud without fear of being off-key. Then I danced, alone, unapologetically, in socks and sweatpants and joy. Because love wasn't something I lost. It was something I found again, in me. So, if you're reading this, wondering if the pain ends, it does. Not suddenly, not loudly, but it ends. And when it does, you'll realize the person you've been waiting for all along was you. What if love comes again? It had been 3 months since I moved out. 3 months since I last saw Noah's eyes in person. 3 months since I stopped checking if he watched my stories. 3 months since I started choosing myself every single day. Healing didn't mean forgetting, but it did mean remembering differently. I no longer thought of him when I heard our old song. I no longer looked for him in every crowd. I no longer wore the necklace he gave me just because on our 2nd anniversary. It still sat in a box, but now it was just a memory, not a chain. I had begun speaking at small community gatherings, women's circles, healing circles, startup forums, telling my story not as a victim but as a survivor. Each time someone cried, each time someone whispered after, "You told my story too," and that made the past worth something. Then one day, something unexpected happened. I was standing in line at my favorite bookstore cafe. New journal in one hand, caramel latte in the other. And then, "Excuse me, are you Clara?" I turned. He was tall, clean-shaven, in a soft brown sweater. Gentle smile, honest eyes. Familiar, but not from memory, just from energy. "Yes," I said, cautious but polite. He held up his phone. "You spoke at the Voices After Silence event last month, right?" I watched the replay. "You were incredible." I blinked, surprised. "Oh, thank you. I wasn't expecting—" "You don't have to say anything." He smiled. "I just wanted to say you helped me understand something about someone I used to hurt." I never got to say sorry to her. But hearing your story made me wish I had. My chest tightened. I nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me that." He smiled again, softer this time, then said, "If you ever want to grab coffee and talk more, just as people, I'd really like that." I paused. Not because I didn't want to, but because this time, I wanted to say yes with a clear heart. So I said, "Maybe, one day. But today, I'm having coffee with myself." He nodded, not disappointed, just understanding. "Then I hope it's the best coffee you've had in a while." I smiled. "It already is." And as he walked away, I sat by the window with my journal, open to the first blank page, and wrote, "Maybe love will come again, but it won't save me. Because I've already done that for myself." Outside, the rain started. Soft, not heavy, like a memory trying to say goodbye. And I let it. The day I told my story, the stage wasn't grand, just a small spotlight. A few dozen chairs, rows of women and men waiting quietly, some with arms crossed, some clutching notebooks, some just trying not to cry before anything even began. I stood backstage with my hands trembling, not out of fear, but because I knew what this moment meant. It wasn't about revenge, it wasn't about closure. It was about release. The host called my name. I stepped out. Soft applause. I adjusted the mic, took a deep breath, and looked at the crowd. "Hi, my name is Clara West, and I married the man I trusted the most, only to find out he was paid to love me." Gasps, eyes widened. I smiled, not bitter, not broken, just human. I know what you're thinking, that it must have shattered me. And you're right, it did. But what broke me wasn't just the lie. It was the fact that I stopped trusting myself. I told them everything. The check, the letter, the fights, the silence, but also the laughter, the love that felt real. And the moment I realized, even if he loved me in the end. It doesn't erase the lie that brought him to me in the beginning. Healing isn't about waiting for someone to say sorry. It's about deciding that you matter more than the apology. There were tears in the front row. A woman clutched her chest. A man wiped his eyes when he thought no one saw. I didn't come here to tell you that love is a lie. I came here to remind you that even when it is, you still have the power to write a better ending. I paused, looked up, and for the first time said the words I had been waiting years to believe. I am not someone who got left behind. I am someone who walked forward. Applause. Louder this time, not polite, but real. Not for what I survived, but for who I had become. After the talk, a young girl approached me, maybe 19, eyes swollen, hands shaking. She whispered, "I thought I was alone." I hugged her, tight, and replied, "You never were. You were just waiting for the moment you remembered how strong you are." That night, I sat by my window with a glass of red wine, my journal open, my soul quiet, and I wrote the final sentence to the story I had been carrying for years. I burned, but I rose, and now I shine without apology. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.